Welcome to the MangaLove channel. Today, we would like to introduce to you a story about a werewolf marked me as his mate. Now he shows up at my window every full moon like it's normal. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to MangaLove so you won't miss any of the newest stories. Now, let's dive right into today's story. Rain streaked the towering windows of Jeremy Douglas's penthouse, softly blurring the city lights below. He sat alone at his mahogany desk, the skyline stretching endlessly, glittering with wealth, power, and prestige, and yet no success, no fortune, no title could fill the hollow ache in his chest. Before him lay a faded Polaroid and a small silver pendant worn at the edges. He traced the delicate engraving with a fingertip. Always find your way back. The photo captured a memory, frozen and golden, two children, muddy and laughing, bathed in the glow of a late afternoon sun. That boy and girl had once been inseparable, a world unto themselves. Her name was Cynthia, his C. Jeremy inhaled slowly, letting the memories settle around him. The identical pendant had been mailed years ago after he had been adopted into a life he had never imagined. Polished floors, cold chandeliers, a world of privilege. Sending her that small silver charm had been his way of holding on to the promise he had whispered to her, the promise that distance and time could never erase. He remembered how he had carefully chosen it, engraved the words, and sent it across the miles, hoping she would understand, hoping she would wait, hoping she would never forget. Memories of those years apart flickered behind his eyes, tender and painful. He remembered the day she had been taken from Oakview, clutching a small backpack as the sunlight caught her curls. He had pressed a note into her tiny hand, his voice cracking, "Always find your way back." And she had nodded, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'll wait." Even after all these years, Jeremy could still see her stubborn smile, hear the soft catch in her voice, and feel the bond that had refused to be broken. The memories of the little girl who had been his world came flooding back. The way she had curled up beside him during thunderstorms, the whispered promise to always wait for him, and his promise to find her. That promise had survived distance, silence, and time. He ran his fingers over the pendant again. Slight scratches marred its surface, a testament to its journey, a witness to years of hope and longing. He had never stopped wondering if she had kept it close, if she had remembered, if she had waited. Despite all he had achieved, all the fortunes he had amassed, he had failed in the one thing that mattered most, keeping his promise to her in the real world. And yet, the pendant remained, a reminder that love, even separated by distance and circumstance, could survive. A soft chime from his computer broke his reverie. Reminder: Douglas Sr.'s 70th birthday gala confirmed. Final plans tomorrow. Jeremy's jaw tightened. His father's events were always grand, suffocating in their perfection. But tonight, fate was quietly beginning to turn the wheels of destiny. Across the city, Cynthia carefully applied the last touches to a 3-tiered wedding cake. She moved through her kitchen with practiced ease. The sweet aroma of vanilla and buttercream filled the air, a quiet testament to the life she had built, one of resilience, creativity, and success. Her business, C's Creations, had become one of Atlanta's most sought after, and every motion of her hands reflected years of dedication. Her assistant, Tara, burst in with excitement. "See," she exclaimed, "you won't believe it. The Douglas family called. They want you to handle Douglas Sr.'s 70th birthday gala." Cynthia froze, heart skipping a beat. "Douglas?" "Yes," Tara confirmed. "Mr. Douglas himself said he wanted you. It's huge, a career-defining opportunity." Her fingers instinctively brushed the silver pendant resting against her chest. A memory stirred. A boy with green eyes and a mischievous grin. A promise whispered beneath golden sunlight. A pang of longing mixed with fear curled in her stomach. "All right," she said softly, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'll do it." Little did she know, the boy who had sent her the pendant so many years ago, the boy who had kept his promise in ways only destiny could understand, would be waiting at that very event. That night, the city was cloaked in rain. Cynthia sat by her window, turning the pendant over and over in her fingers, recalling a face she hadn't seen in years, but had never forgotten. She remembered the way he had held her hand during storms, the whispered promises, the laughter, the small silences that had spoken volumes. Miles away, Jeremy held the same pendant, worn smooth from years of being held close. His mind wandered to her, to green eyes, soft laughter, stubbornness, warmth, and courage. Even after all this time, she occupied the center of his thoughts, a constant he could never forget. They were two hearts separated by distance, circumstance, and years, yet tethered together by a promise, a pendant, and memories that refused to fade. Somewhere deep inside, they both knew their paths would cross again, that destiny, patient and relentless, would find a way to reunite them. The rain drummed steadily against the glass, a quiet rhythm echoing the longing neither could voice aloud. Jeremy whispered into the darkness, his voice barely audible. "I promised I'd never stop hoping." See, far across the city, Cynthia whispered to the same night, "Where are you, Jeremy? I hope you come back for me." And somewhere between rain-soaked streets and silent cityscapes, fate was already weaving the threads of their reunion. Because some loves, no matter the distance, no matter the years, cannot be broken. They only wait patiently and quietly for the right moment, the right place, and the perfect time to be found again. Cynthia Williams adjusted her clipboard nervously as she stepped out of her car onto the Douglas estate. The grand mansion loomed above her, its white columns gleaming in the early evening light. This was no ordinary event. It was Douglas Sr.'s 70th birthday gala, a celebration of wealth, status, and legacy. And for Cynthia, it was an opportunity she had worked years to earn. She drew a deep breath, steadying her racing heart. Her heels clicked sharply on the cobblestone driveway as she surveyed the scene. Staff bustling, tents being set up, florists arranging perfect bouquets. Her mind raced with logistics, but somewhere beneath it all, a whisper of memory tugged at her chest. The estate felt familiar, though she hadn't been here. She shook it off. Memories were dangerous. They were sticky, heavy, and sometimes painful. She had learned long ago that holding on to the past could leave a person stranded in a life that had already moved on. Jeremy stepped out of his black limousine, the autumn air crisp against his tailored suit. He moved with the calm authority of a man who had inherited a fortune and a name. Yet his mind was elsewhere, preoccupied with thoughts that had haunted him for years. He had returned to Atlanta for the gala reluctantly. Social events were rarely his thing, but tonight felt different. There was an invisible pull, a sense that fate had orchestrated something beyond reason. And then, amidst the swirling guests and glittering lights, he saw her, Cynthia. She was directing staff, clipboard in hand, exuding the calm competence he remembered from years ago. But beneath the professional exterior, he recognized the little girl he had left behind, stubborn, spirited, and impossibly familiar. His heart skipped. 15 years had passed, yet the memory of her green eyes and determined smile had never faded. He had dreamt of this moment countless times, but the reality, the way her presence made the air feel charged, like static before a storm, was overwhelming. Cynthia looked up at the sound of his footsteps. "Mr. Douglas," she said politely, holding out a hand, "I'm Cynthia Williams, the event planner for tonight. It's an honor to—" Her words faltered as she noticed his gaze, intense and green, fixed on her in a way that seemed to look right through her. "Cynthia," he breathed, almost a whisper, as if saying her name could break him. Her heart stopped. The voice, low, familiar, threading through the years, tugged at a corner of memory she hadn't dared visit. Jeremy, her foster brother. Then he noticed it, the silver pendant glinting faintly at her throat. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice trembling. Cynthia's hand instinctively went to it. "It's a gift from my brother," she said softly, almost in disbelief herself. "He promised he would always find me." Jeremy froze. The words were exactly what he had hoped, exactly what he had dreamed of. 15 years of searching, of letters that never arrived, of nights spent imagining her face, and now she was here. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "See," his voice cracked, barely audible. Her hand pressed to her chest. "Jeremy!" The years collapsed. 15 years of waiting, hoping, and fear flooded into one instant of recognition. "Why? Why didn't you find me sooner?" she asked, her voice shaking, a mix of hurt, anger, and longing. "I waited. Every single day I waited for you. I thought you had forgotten me." "I never forgot," he said, taking a cautious step closer. "Every day, see? Even when I didn't know where you were, even when I thought you were gone forever. I sent letters, parcels, they all came back. You were gone, your name changed, and I didn't know where you were. I searched everywhere." Her tears spilled freely, and for a moment all the logic of the adult world faded. She wanted to cling to him, to scream, to cry, and she did. I thought you didn't care," she admitted, trembling, "that you had moved on without me." "I couldn't move on without you," he said, his voice low but firm. "Not for a single day. You were my world, see, and you still are." Their arms found each other instinctively, holding tightly, and the embrace that followed was fierce, desperate. A culmination of years spent apart, filled with relief and the familiar comfort of years of sibling love. Cynthia buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent she remembered from childhood, and Jeremy held her like she was the only person in the world. "I missed you," she whispered into his suit, her voice muffled but piercingly honest. "I missed you more," he replied, "every day, and I'll never leave you again." They lingered in that embrace, long enough to bridge years of absence, long enough to remind themselves that this was real, that she was here, and he hadn't imagined it. Cynthia clung to him as though letting go would mean losing her life. Even as comfort settled over them, a small, confusing flutter stirred in Cynthia's chest. Something beyond relief, something she didn't understand yet, but could not ignore. Over the next few days, Jeremy and Cynthia spent time together, reconnecting through shared memories. They walked through the park where they had once played, laughed over ridiculous childhood dares, and revisited old neighborhoods that felt frozen in time. One afternoon, they found themselves in Cynthia's bakery, the smell of vanilla and sugar filling the air. Jeremy accidentally knocked over a bowl of flour, sending a small cloud into the air. "You haven't changed," Cynthia said, laughing, brushing flour from his sleeve. "And you still tease me like you did when we were kids," he replied, smiling softly. Their hands brushed while cleaning up the mess, and this time Cynthia felt it, a pulse, a spark that made her stomach flutter. She pulled back subtly, confused. "What is this?" she wondered. "Why does it feel different?" Jeremy noticed the hesitation, but said nothing, understanding her boundaries. He let the moment linger in silence, letting her navigate her own emotions. That night, Cynthia sat alone in her apartment, the silver pendant in her hand. Her heart was chaotic, a war of emotion she didn't know how to reconcile. "I love him, I do, but not like that, right? He's my brother, my family." Tears filled her eyes. 15 years of longing had morphed into something she could not name, and the fear of crossing that invisible line terrified her. Every memory of their childhood closeness now carried a weight, a tenderness, a longing that was becoming more than sibling affection. She touched the pendant as if seeking guidance. Am I wrong to feel this way? Across the city, Jeremy sat in his office, holding the matching pendant he had kept all these years. His thoughts mirrored hers, but from the other side of the fence. He wanted her in every way, but he also wanted to respect her struggle, to give her time to understand the shift in her heart without pressure. "I'll wait," he whispered to the empty room. "I'll wait for her to feel it, to realize it's safe to love me like that." Over the following weeks, Jeremy was patient but persistent. He shared small moments, cooking with her, revisiting favorite childhood haunts, laughing until their sides ached. They held hands during walks, rested their heads on each other's shoulders, and slowly, tenderly, Cynthia began to notice the subtle pull of attraction. Yet she resisted. Every touch, every glance brought both comfort and fear. The love she felt was changing, morphing into something she had never anticipated, and she wasn't ready to let go of the safety of their sibling bond. Jeremy never forced her. He let her lead the pace, only ensuring she never felt alone. He whispered affirmations, reminded her of their shared history, and gently explored the new dimension of their connection. One rainy afternoon, as they took shelter in her bakery from a sudden downpour, their hands brushed while reaching for the same mug. Cynthia felt a jolt of confusing warmth. She began, hesitating. I don't know what this is. Jeremy's green eyes softened. I know, and that's okay. We don't have to name it yet. We just feel it together. Cynthia swallowed hard, her heart pounding. It feels wrong and right at the same time. Exactly, he said gently, taking her hand in his, and I'll stay here with you until it feels only right. For the first time, she let herself lean into him. Not fully, not romantically, but enough to acknowledge that something had shifted, something deep, something real, something that could no longer be ignored. Cynthia sat on the balcony of her apartment, the night air cool against her skin. Atlanta glittered below her, a city alive with light, sounds, and the lives of strangers who would never understand hers. Her fingers toyed with the silver pendant around her neck, glinting faintly under the balcony light. She had seen him, Jeremy Douglas, just months ago, after 15 years apart. The reunion had been everything, shocking, emotional, raw. Her heart had leapt at the sight of him, the boy who had once been her world, the one who had sent her the pendant to keep his promise. And yet, there was something new stirring inside her, something confusing, something that made her chest tighten and her thoughts scatter. She loved him, always had, but the love had been framed in the safety of siblings. A bond forged through laughter, tears, and mutual dependence. Now she felt it shifting, becoming something more, something forbidden, something she wasn't sure she could name. The next morning, Jeremy sent her a simple text. Coffee? Just us? Cynthia hesitated. Her thumb hovered over the screen, her chest constricted with both excitement and fear. She finally typed, "Fine, but we keep it casual." The cafe was quiet, tucked in a corner of Midtown, its walls lined with bookshelves and potted plants. She arrived first, sitting by the window with her pendant in hand. The sunlight caught it, and she felt a pang of memory, of a boy who had once held her hand, protected her, and promised he would never forget her. Jeremy arrived moments later, casually dressed, but radiating the same intensity she remembered from their childhood. When he saw her, a flicker of something unspoken passed between them, recognition, relief, and an unacknowledged pull that neither of them yet dared to name. You are listening to a narrated story on the MangaLove channel. Don't forget to share your thoughts about today's story. "See," he said softly, his voice careful, measured, not the romantic tone she feared, but warm, familiar, sibling-like in comfort. "Jeremy," she replied, her voice tight, almost brittle. They sat across from each other, the silence heavy. Every clink of a coffee cup sounded amplified. Jeremy's eyes searched hers, not as a lover yet, but as someone desperate to reassure, to heal. I can't stop thinking about seeing you again," he said finally. Cynthia's fingers tightened around her cup. "Neither can I," she admitted, but the words carried guilt. The rain had returned, soft and insistent, as they wandered through the quiet corners of Atlanta, sharing a single umbrella. Their shoulders brushed with every step, and Cynthia felt a flutter in her chest she didn't understand, a warmth that had nothing to do with the chill in the air. Jeremy laughed when she accidentally splashed him with a puddle. "You always did like trouble," he teased, his eyes bright with mischief. "I just like keeping you on your toes," she shot back, though her smile faltered when their hands brushed, lingering just a heartbeat too long. That brief, accidental touch sent a shiver through her, a shocking awareness that the bond they had once known, so safe, so familiar, had shifted. Now it was delicate, urgent, and frighteningly real. She pulled her hand back quickly, scolding herself internally. "This isn't right. He's my brother." Jeremy noticed but said nothing. He simply watched her, understanding that her heart needed space to navigate the shift from sibling love to something more. One rainy evening, Jeremy dropped by unexpectedly. Cynthia had been finishing a cake, the smell of vanilla and buttercream filling the apartment. The storm outside rattled the windows. When she opened the door, Jeremy stood there, soaked, holding an umbrella, but smiling softly. "You got caught in the rain," she said, concerned. "I didn't mind," he replied, stepping inside. The warmth of his presence enveloped her. She felt her chest tighten, not from fear, not entirely, but from something new, something growing. In the spaces between them, he noticed the pendant around her neck, its silver glint against her skin. "I see you still wear it," he said gently. "I never took it off," she admitted, fingers brushing the chain. "It reminded me of you." "Of us, of the promise," he interrupted quietly. "And it's kept me hoping that one day you'd understand that nothing has really changed. See, not my feelings, not us." Her heart raced. Feelings? Us? The words, innocent on his lips, carried weight she wasn't ready for. She wanted to pull back, to return to the safety of sibling affection, but a small, undeniable part of her didn't want to. Later that night, Cynthia sat alone, the rain tapping on her windows like a slow heartbeat. She traced the pendant with trembling fingers. 15 years of waiting, longing, and missing him had been purely sibling love, and now it was transforming into something else entirely. "Is this wrong?" she wondered. "How can I feel this way about my brother? But he's not my brother anymore. He's Jeremy, the man I've waited for." Tears slipped down her cheeks. The confusion was intense, a storm within her heart. She wanted to retreat, to tell herself this was impossible, forbidden, a betrayal of the past. Yet every memory, every glance, every touch reminded her that what they had shared had always been profound. And now, love was simply growing into its next inevitable form. Over the next few weeks, Jeremy never pressured her. He gave her space, but was always present. He cooked with her, shared stories of his travels, revisited favorite childhood spots. Their hands occasionally brushed, and he never forced her to hold his hand, only made sure she always felt safe. "You're scared," he said one evening as they walked through Piedmont Park. "I see it. I understand it." Cynthia glanced at him, heart hammering. "It feels wrong," she admitted. "That's what makes it safe," he responded. Her chest tightened. She wanted to trust him completely, but fear lingered. A shadow hung over the warmth she felt. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "I'll wait," he said firmly, squeezing her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere, see? I never left, and I never will." One evening, caught in a sudden storm, Cynthia and Jeremy found shelter under a small gazebo in the park. Rain dripped around them, the world a blur of silver and gray. Their shoulders touched, accidental at first, and Cynthia felt the warmth radiate through her chest. She began, her heart racing. "I think I'm starting to feel something." Jeremy's green eyes softened, full of patience and love. "I know," he said quietly. "And it's okay. You don't have to understand it fully yet. You just have to feel it. Let it exist without fear." Her tears mingled with the rain. "It's terrifying." "I know," he whispered, leaning closer, his forehead resting against hers. "But it's real, and it's ours." For the first time, Cynthia let herself lean into him. Not fully, not romantically yet, but enough to acknowledge the shift in her heart, enough to realize that what she had felt as sibling love was transforming into something deeper, something enduring, something that had been waiting for this moment all along. And for the first time in 15 years, Cynthia allowed herself to imagine a future where she could love him fully, not as her brother, not as her foster sibling, but as the man who had always been her home. Weeks later, after they returned from dinner, Cynthia found herself sitting beside Jeremy on her couch, closer than she'd ever dared before. The quiet between them was soft, warm, the kind that didn't need words. When she let her head rest against his shoulder, it felt natural, almost inevitable. They weren't children anymore, yet the bond that had carried them through years of separation still pulsed between them, steady and alive. Jeremy's hand brushed hers, a silent question. This time, she didn't pull away. It was a beginning, the gentle crossing of an invisible line, the moment friendship and memory began to shift into something deeper. What had once been innocent and familiar was now becoming something neither of them could ignore. Delicate, terrifying, and utterly real. Her heart thudded painfully as she lifted her eyes to his. "Jeremy," she whispered, "I've been fighting this, fighting us. But the truth is, I don't want to anymore. I love you, not like before, not as I used to. It's different now. It's deeper." Jeremy's breath caught, his eyes searching hers as if afraid to believe. "Are you sure, C?" he asked softly. She nodded, tears glimmering. "I've never been more sure of anything." A shaky laugh escaped him, part relief, part disbelief. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, red velvet box he'd carried for weeks. "Then, let me ask you something I've wanted to ask since the moment I saw you again." He opened it, revealing a simple diamond ring. "Cynthia Williams," he said, his voice trembling, "will you marry me? Will you let me love you the way I was always meant to?" Her breath hitched as tears spilled freely. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking into a smile. "Yes, Jeremy." When he slipped the ring onto her finger, her hands shook, and before she could speak again, he kissed her. Soft, hesitant at first, then certain, sealing the promise between them. It wasn't the end of their story. It was the moment they finally stopped running from what had always been written in their hearts. The morning sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Cynthia's apartment, painting her walls in soft golden hues. Today was the day, not just any day, but the day she would finally step into a life she had only dreamed about for 15 years. She smoothed the lace of her wedding dress over her curves, her hands trembling slightly. The silver pendant rested against her chest, catching the light, a symbol of the promise that had guided them back to each other. She touched it lightly, drawing comfort from its familiar weight. 15 years of longing, searching, and heartache had led her to this moment, and yet her heart still fluttered with fear. Could she truly let go of the past? Could she embrace this new chapter, where Jeremy was more than her brother, more than her constant, but her love? Tara, her assistant, peeked in with a warm smile. "See, you look radiant. He's going to be speechless." Cynthia managed a small laugh. "I hope so," she whispered. Her voice trembled, betraying the mix of nerves and excitement. She traced the pendant one more time, drawing strength from its history, from the boy who had promised to find her, and the man who had patiently waited for her to understand her heart. The estate had been transformed into something breathtaking, blending elegance with intimacy. White roses lined the aisle, their fragrance mingling with the crisp autumn air. Candles flickered softly in glass holders, and sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over polished floors. It was perfect, the perfect union of past and present, a bridge between childhood memories and the future they were about to claim. Jeremy stood in a quiet room upstairs, adjusting his cufflinks before catching his reflection in the mirror. He had always been composed, a man of control and authority, but today his chest tightened with anticipation. The woman he had spent years searching for, the girl who had been his world, his foster sister, was about to become his wife. "She's finally mine," he whispered under his breath, "not just in memory, not just as my constant, but completely with all her heart. I'll never let her go." His eyes fell on the pendant around his neck, a gift he had kept for years, now a twin of the one she had cherished. It was a silent acknowledgement that what they had shared had always been more than words, more than memories. It was love, waiting for the right time to awaken. Cynthia descended the staircase slowly, each step measured, her heart racing. Her eyes met Jeremy's at the bottom, and for a moment the world around them disappeared. There was no crowd, no estate, no guests, only the two of them, standing in the glow of history, memory, and possibility. "Jeremy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You look breathtaking," he said, a catch in his throat. His hand brushed lightly against hers, an echo of childhood touches now layered with the depth of adult love. Her chest tightened. "I almost can't believe this is real," she admitted softly. "It is," he said gently. "I promise you it's real. We made it here together." Her fingers found his, intertwining. The warmth of his hand, the familiarity of his touch, reminded her of all the times he had been her protector, her friend, her constant, and now something more, something she was ready, finally, to accept. The ceremony was intimate. Close friends and family surrounded them, but the gravity of their journey made the world narrow down to the two of them. Jeremy's voice trembled as he spoke. "Cynthia Williams, I promised a little girl under a streetlight that I would always find her. 15 years later, after searching, hoping, and waiting, here you are. You are my heart, my home, my life. I vowed to love you completely, fiercely, and unconditionally, the way I always have, the way I always will." Tears ran freely down Cynthia's cheeks. When it was her turn, her voice was fragile but firm. "Jeremy Douglas, I waited, I feared, and I loved you across the years. I've carried our memories, our laughter, our heartache, and now I vow to love you as you deserve, with courage, with trust, and with every piece of my heart." When they kissed, it was not just the joining of two people, but the culmination of 15 years of waiting, longing, and patience. It was the bridge from childhood innocence to adult love, raw and unshakable. Every heartbeat resonated in that moment, a testament to promises kept and love realized. Later, in the quiet of their apartment, the world shrank to just the two of them. Cynthia leaned against Jeremy as they unpacked small details from the wedding. The scent of flowers from the cake she had baked lingered in the air, mingling with the faint scent of his cologne. "You make me feel safe," she murmured, pressing her head against his chest. "I've waited 15 years to hear you say that," he replied softly. "I'll protect you for a lifetime, see, even when it was hard?" she asked, lifting her gaze to meet his. "Especially then," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I never gave up on you, and I never will." She pressed her hand to his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, the same heartbeat she had longed for as a child, as a young woman, as the woman he had patiently waited to love. "I never want to be without you again," she whispered. "And you won't be," he said, his voice steady, determined. "Not now, not ever." Time passed, and their lives began to fill with the kind of joy that only family could bring. One morning, Cynthia held their newborn daughter, a tiny girl with Jeremy's green eyes and her own stubborn determination. Jeremy knelt beside them, gently brushing her curls back and tracing a finger along her tiny hand. "She has your eyes," he whispered, awe in his voice. "And your courage," Cynthia said softly, a smile breaking through her tired but content expression. They watched her sleep together, the room filled with warmth, soft laughter, and love. Their daughter was more than a child. She was living proof that love could survive anything: separation, fear, time. What had once been innocent sibling devotion had blossomed into something deeper, stronger, and beautifully imperfect. A love refined by patience, anchored by trust, and strengthened by the trials that had once torn them apart. Jeremy leaned down and pressed a tender kiss to Cynthia's temple. "We found our way back," he murmured against her skin. Cynthia smiled, resting her cheek against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the sound that had always felt like home. "We did," she whispered, "and we'll never let go again." Years later, as the evening light spilled across their portico, painting everything in soft gold, their daughter darted across the garden, chasing fireflies with a laugh that echoed through the air. The same kind of laugh that had once bound two lost foster kids together in another lifetime. Jeremy reached for Cynthia's hand, their fingers intertwining naturally, as if molded for this moment. The matching silver pendants around their necks caught the fading sunlight, glinting like twin promises fulfilled. "I love you," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. Cynthia looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. "I love you more than I ever thought I could," she replied, her words a vow wrapped in gratitude. She rested her head against his shoulder, her growing belly moving gently beneath his hand, their second child, another chapter in the love story they'd rewritten, from pain into peace. Their golden retriever stretched lazily at their feet, the soft hum of summer crickets filling the silence between heartbeats. For a long, perfect moment, there was no past, no distance, no ache of years lost. There was only them, two souls who had found their way through confusion, through longing, through everything that had once stood in their way. The pendants caught the last glimmer of sunlight, the engraved words almost glowing in the dusk. "Always find your way back." Cynthia lifted her gaze to Jeremy's, her smile tender, her eyes full of everything they'd survived to stand here now. They shared a quiet look, the kind that spoke of promises kept and forever earned. And in that silence, their hearts said what words never could. They had found their way back, and this time they were home. Thank you for listening to MangaLove Storytelling. If you find the story meaningful and enjoyable, please remember to give MangaLove a like and subscribe so you won't miss the newest stories. Wishing you a wonderful day.